In this episode of our photography review show, we're gonna review mixed team photographers. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. I hope you had a great week and I hope you're ready for more photography fun. Now if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. For the past 7 or 8 months I've been reviewing your images and I reviewed over hundreds of photographers and thousands of their images. Now it's a lot of fun, and if you want to join us, make sure that you head to our website cleverphotography.com and look for our membership there, the Clever Photographer Plus, where for a little fee you get monthly full bundle of photography tools as well as the bonuses including the access to our Facebook group, Clever Photographer Academy, and also access to this photography review show where we review your photos every week. So this week's show is gonna be a quick one as we only have 3 photographers to review. However, we're hoping for more photographers next week. If you need to find the dates, they are in the member zone with your membership or also available in the Facebook group Clever Photographer Academy. Anyway, we have 3 photographs to go through, so let's start right away. Starting with Evgeniy. Evgeniy, we have 2 images from you, and that's this beautiful white flower and the squirrel or chipmunk. I think this is a squirrel. So starting with the white flower, let's jump into the camera details. Again, looking at the camera, you have a Pentax K100D Super with the Sigma lens on it, or at least that's what's showing here. Now ISO 200, 170 millimeters, so nice punch in, f8, 1/125. Now it's a lovely capture, and one thing I really love here is the light. I know last week we were looking at some flowers and one of them needed a little bit of better condition, and I don't know at what time of the day you capture this, but I love it. I think the light is great here. It's not completely diffused, but it brings really nice highlights. The shadows are not harsh, and I think it works very well. So that's a great capture, very well captured with beautiful details, lovely light, everything's just brilliant. So this is very good. Moving to the animal. Now looking at the camera, as we're using the same camera, the settings was ISO 200, 260 millimeters, f8, 1/125. Now looking at it, I have to say when I zoom in, the face is looking a little bit out of focus. Not necessarily the fur is full of details, but there is a slight blur on the face. So that is a little bit of shame. Just something maybe to look at. Also, this is something what I noticed a few times, not on all your images, but sometimes you get this funny elements in your background. It's looking like little dots. So maybe you can let me know in a comment, what is it from? So you get, I don't know if you can see it, I hope you can on the video, but it's like a little dots of different colors. It looks like a texture, and sometimes it's not as noticeable, but today it is a lot. So I don't know if you've done some maybe cloning or some further edit to it. However, it's a little bit visible, and today it's a little bit distracting. But other than that, obviously the light is very reasonable here, so I quite like that. I like the color. The details is something I would be looking at. I think there is a slight blur on the face, but other than that, very good. Now while we're here, let's talk about the composition. The composition to start with is nice. There is a space in front of the animal is full there. She's not doing much, but it's a nice full shot of it. What I would do, I would just crop it differently. I would probably get a little bit tighter, zoom in on her, and really focus on the main subject. This part of the image, even though it's lovely, it doesn't really give or add us anything extra. So I would just go in our crop tool and crop it down to something like this to keep the same ratio. Also, we can crop a little bit of the bottom as it doesn't necessarily give us that much either. So I think maybe something like this. Let's have a look at it. Maybe a little bit more space in front and get something like this. So this is what I would do it. What I really like here is the depth. I think that works very well. Lovely blurred soft background. Also very nice contrast of the colors. The ginger animal and the green works very well. The white also works very well here. So all in all, after I would crop it, I think it looks very good. Also keep an eye on another thing. I see these little white dots. Let's just zoom out of this. When I reset it, I notice it. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wonder if we can if we can jump out of it and zoom in on it, you can see it here. Now, it's really easy to fix this in Lightroom. You can just use this little tool. I don't know what it's called in Lightroom CC, healing brush, and you really just go and dot on these little white dots and remove them. So I think attention to details is everything. So this is what I would do to it. After that, we cropped it down a little bit to get something like this. And there you have it, maybe even more. So this is what I would do to it. I have done already some edit, and this would be the composition. Again, a little bit more space in front of her. Then moving to the flower. Not much to add to the flower, really. I really like it. I like the sharpness, contrast. I think the color, even though it's bright behind, the depth is so good here that it's not really that noticeable. The green works very well at the bottom together. I think the crop is quite nice too. All in all, I think this is a lovely, lovely image, and it's very well done. It's very clean, very gentle, and I think it really creates an emotion, and that's what it's all about. While we're here talking about post-processing, there really isn't much I would add to its image. I mean, everything is pretty much done. The white balance is lovely. The colors are lovely. Shadows, highlights, exposure. There is already a vignette around it. I think it's good. Evgeniy, not much to add there. On this one, only thing I can imagine is little vignette. Even further, I would maybe use the masking tool, linear gradient from the bottom to close the image a little bit like this, and maybe remove some of the attention away from the actual baton. And that's about it. With this image, it's not necessarily the post-processing. I would just keep an eye on making sure that everything is focused. So Evgeniy, thank you very much for sharing your images with us. It's a pleasure to review them as always. You stay safe, take care, and send us more for next week. Moving to John. John, 2 images. I have to say, first of all, I love this one. When I saw it first time, I think it's brilliant. Great contrast, lovely details, lovely capture. The blur in foreground and the background is great. I think this is a brilliant capture, and very good animal pet image. Talking about this one, now this is very abstract, very artistic, obviously with the foreground trying to create a scene which is very kind of moody, which is really nice. So let's start with this image, John. Looking at your camera details, Nikon D700 with a 35mm on lens, and the camera settings, ISO 100, 35mm, f16 4 second. Oh, this is a long exposure. So ISO 100, perfect. 35mm. The scene, I think that's not even that wide, so that works very well. That's also why I think the foreground is very reasonably sized towards the rest of the image. That works very well. If you would go wide, this would be way too big, I think. F16, I'm assuming you were pushing the shutter speed for that. And interestingly, you can't really see that much on the clouds. With 4 second, it's difficult to say. Sometimes you need to go even further to get a nice blur in the sky. However, still lovely. So let's look at it. Let's just zoom in to 100%. I can't zoom any further. Why is it smaller image? Anyway, let's zoom in. And I wonder, where did you focus? Because I would assume if this is my foreground and really the opening of the scene, I would really like to have this in focus. Now, maybe it's the way it transitioned into the JPEG, but when I zoom in, it really doesn't look that focused. So then I kind of had a look, and I think maybe your focus was somewhere around this area, because this looks more focused than the foreground. Now, again, that could be totally artistic decision to do that. However, just something to kind of keep in mind when you're using bright element as a foreground, regardless if it's your artistic decision that you're going to leave it soft, the human eyes will still focus on it, and they will get a little bit confused about the fact that the main subject, the main thing, the thing which is opening the scene is not really sharp. So just something to think of. Now, there's multiple different ways you could do this. One thing I'm kind of surprised is that with f16, you should really have everything as focused. I would check where it was your focus point, and so on. Other than that, I quite like it. I love the idea. I love the putting it together, but I think the sharpness is something I would be looking for. Also, there is a little bit of noise, which with the ISO 100, sometimes the long exposure gives this. Plus, now when I zoom in, I can see some of your sensor spots in the sky. Now again, you can use the healing brush for this. Just make it nice and big. Tap on it once and it removes. There's another one here. There's also a little thing called visualize spots. And you can really push that or not. It really depends. And you can remove these spots. So you can see them here as these little circle things. So you can make it, you always make it a little bit bigger than the actual spot. And this is how you remove them. You have fair bit. Now, cleaning sensor on the camera, multiple different ways. You can do it from home, which really, I have never been brave enough to do so, but some people are. Second thing is you can send it away to the camera shop. We have a London Camera Exchange here in Chichester, in West Sussex, and they actually do it for you. So 3 options. You can do it yourself and save a little bit of money. You can send away the camera, which I don't really like to do. Or you find a camera shop where you can bring it there and they do it for you. This is what I prefer. I prefer to go to the shop, hand them over the physical thing, and pick it up in the afternoon. It costs around 30-40 pounds. But you don't need to do it that often. But from time to time, I think it's a good practice to do it. Tomorrow, I am actually heading to the north of England where I'm going to be photographing puffins, birds, some wildlife. And I had all of that done just before going, just because, yeah, you don't want to waste time with sensor dust. So this is it. I got a little bit stuck. I'm sorry for that. Let's go back to your image. So we fixed some of the sensor dust. I also told you how I would look after my sensor. And now we can move to your next image, which is brilliant. So let's have a look at the camera details. Nikon D850. So what do we have here? A 70 to 200 millimeter lens. Oof. Zoom in with ISO 400, 200 millimeters, so really punched in, f2.8, 1/640th of a second. Now, John, well done on this one. Really, really love it. First, I really like the softness in the foreground and the background. It always works great. That's very well captured. Obviously, with the f2.8, excellent. Then, I love the level of the details on the dog, which is also really, really cool. Then I love the light on him, that it's not too harsh. It's very well balanced. Obviously, it's not completely diffused, but it works very, very well. And then I could just keep moving on. So all in all, the camera settings are what they are. Obviously, making sure that you have the dog in focus and pin sharp. Also that you have a really low f-stop. You had to pump up the ISO, but in this case, it really works. These kind of settings really show me that you know what you're doing, and this is brilliant. So well done on this one. Talking about composition, nothing I can add. Active space in front of the dog, so he's looking somewhere. Lovely lighting, great contrast, great crop, great framing, lovely light, depth, main subject also, the main story, really, really well done. On this one, now there's lots of things right here. First, really well thought with the foreground element, really opening the scene, giving the opener for the moody scene. I think that you go in the right direction, but the sharpness is the one thing which kind of let it a little bit off for me. Number 2, the sky didn't really do exactly what you would hope so. I think I know what you were going for, but it's just very busy, the sky. So I would kind of hope that maybe you get some kind of streaks or something. So next time I would try to go for a little longer exposure, maybe try like ND filter, depending on what time of the day you capture this. Just something to think of and try in the future. The cropping is all right as well. I mean, you know there is you're not kind of in between. You have lots of sky, but then you have lots of foreground. Yeah, just a few things to think of for the future. Then talking about post-processing on this one, I'm not going to do much to it, to be honest. Now, one thing I would probably do, I would try to make sure that this kind of main subject is in the center. Of course, making sure that I have everything, obviously everything has a kind of meaning to it, and that's an artistic thing, but I would place it in the center. That's something I would do. I would close the image from the top, and I can do that with the masking and linear gradient. Just do something like this and minus the exposure. Then I would use a brush, add extra exposure, and paint over the sky to add some new contrast to it and make it all a little bit more interesting, I think. So that would be that. I tell you another thing with now when I'm looking at it is again, kind of remembering the kind of basics of composition and everything, human eyes get attracted by the brightest and lightest part of the image. Now, generally, you want to have it in the center or in the kind of right corner, where the brightest parts is very much the first part, the opening of your scene. And then, before I actually, let me remove that. And then, when I look at this, then some parts of the sky. So really, depending on what you were trying to show first, you maybe need to kind of think of that for the future. Anyway, let's leave it. Move on this image. Nothing to do here. The image is brilliant. I love it. Just very, very well done. So I'm super happy with it. Well done, John. Thank you very much for sending us your photos. I got really stuck today. So please make sure that you send us more images for next week. Until then, stay safe, take care, and bye-bye. Which will bring us to Zdenek. Zdenek, our trusted photographer all the way from Africa, with 2 more great images. Now, after a few weeks, no black and white today. I can tell you that right away, because I love the colors and I love the edits. So let's talk about it. As usual, 1 animal, 1 landscape image. Starting with the animal. Now, does it say what kind of animal it is? Kudu. Kudu. I mean, I love the horns or antlers or how you call it, but that looks brilliant. Also, the colors are very, very cool. Now, the light is a little bit harsh on this part, but other than that, I think it's very nice. Talking about the camera, Canon 600D with your 55 to 250 millimeters, and from your camera settings, ISO 400, 250 millimeters, f7.1, 1/400 of a second. That is very cool. Setting spot on. 1/400 second, making sure that everything is in focus. 7.1, pretty much making sure that with 250 millimeters, you have the full animal in focus, so that works very well. And ISO 400 is okay. Let's zoom in. I don't think there will be much noise, right? No, I think it's very, very reasonable. So looking at it like this, very good. Great level of detail. My only pick here would be the light. But we are talking wildlife, so there is not much you can do other than maybe come a different time of the day. Bringing us to this image. There's lots happening on this image. I love it. Same camera, am I right? No. It seems every week you have a different camera. So this one, Canon M50 with a lens 11 to 22 millimeters, nice and wide. And ISO 100, 11 millimeters, f11, 1/160th of a second. So really wide panoramic scene, which works very, very well. Great flow and leading line here. I'm really happy that you kept the full tree in. That really makes a big difference. Nice foreground here, nice background with the lovely little mountains and hills and beautiful sky with lots of texture in it. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant. Great colors. Very decent light as well. Not too harsh. I'm happy about that. Maybe it was over harsh, so that's why we don't see many shadows. But it's a lovely, lovely scene. So very, very good. Talking, which brings us to composition. I already mentioned most of it. However, when we zoom in, just quickly check in on the details. They are really, really good. And composition-wise, there is a lot happening. This is very much a storytelling image. There is a lot of little bit different corners. Last week, we had an image from Patrick, which was very similar. You know, you had your little corner here with the road and with the truck, and your eyes get kind of stuck there, and you're thinking, maybe is it safari? People drive through and everything. Then you move here, and you have the lonely tree and this fallen tree, and you kind of know that you're in Africa, so you're thinking about the animals and so on. And then you have the sky, and then you have the mountains, so you're thinking what's behind them and what's happening there. So there's lots happening on this picture, and I really like that. I really like both versions. I like when you put one main subject, and it's all about it. It's clear for the viewer, straightforward. Or I also really like when it's an image like this, when there is just lots of different stories happening, because I think that's also very powerful. I mean, this is image you could totally print off and have it on your wall, and that's always the idea. On this one, the subject is much clearer on this one. Composition-wise, it's very nice. It's interacting. The depth is working very well here. The kind of soft background, foreground, and then the background. The contrast of the colors working very well. And I think the framing is also very smart, Zdenek. So brilliant capture. Very happy with it. Which brings us to post-processing. And this is something what maybe you need to kind of keep an eye on, and that's the colors kind of leaking into the rest of the image. And I know maybe that could be because of your screen, or because of the monitor or anything, but when I look at the image or when I look at the animal, the first thing I see is a green leaking into the fur. And if I go into the edit and color and click on auto on my white balance, I know right away that it will pump the purple and it will make it more natural. Now, of course, with the blue, I wouldn't change that. However, I would definitely add some tint. And now when I look at the before, you can see how much green was there, which is not the natural color of the animal. I'm sure the fur isn't green. And this is more natural-like. So I think that's a one thing to kind of think of, to keep an eye. Anytime there are really major colors like blue or green, and there is a lots of it on the camera is keen to push it to the other elements and leak it into other colors on the image. So that would be one thing. After that, also when I zoomed in, I noticed two things. I noticed this element. There's also one here, and there is also one here, which could be your camera or sensor dust. Again, really easy to remove it with the healing spot. It's really a quick job. 1, 2, 3, and just, being part of paying attention to the details. This is what I would do. Of course, that we could kind of darken this a little bit, maybe with a brush. And do something like this. Well, that's way too dark, but we will adjust that, of course. So we will maybe do just something like this. And make another brush with a little bit of extra exposure and really just open this up, bringing the animal out. Also maybe opening the highlights just a little bit. So something like this. Brilliant picture. Love it. Now on this one, what could we do? One thing I would do, I would use a linear gradient and just kind of close the picture from the bottom. So paint it like this and do minus exposure here. Maybe do one from the top as well. Again, minus exposure. Just very gently add it to the top. After this, I would leave it. I think it's great. I think the white balance is spot on. The contrast is great. The highlights, exposure, everything works here. So very, very good. Zdenek, thank you so much for sending us your images as always. It's pleasure for me to see them. I can't wait to see more next week. I think I already saw some. But anyway, please keep sending us your images. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to join us for the next episode of our photographer review show, you can find out the dates in the Clever Photographer Academy and also in your membership zone of the Clever Photographer Plus. If you haven't joined us yet, head to our website cleverphotographer.com, look for the membership there, and you can already send us your images for the next week episode. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.